pretty calm. I know that there's always the 24-hour Christmas Story going on, so that's my dad's favorite movie, so that will
I had
always be
never
on.
seen that movie until this last year when the Clausens were here celebrating Christmas, because they apparently just have that on all day while they're doing Christmas. Uh, and I had never seen the movie because my parents
Oh,
don't
so
really
good.
like it. So, funnily enough, I had seen the musical, like the stage show, but I
Oh,
hadn't
right,
seen
right,
the
right.
movie. And so they turned it on last year, and I was just kind of like, this is what this movie is. I could have guessed that.
Such a classic.
Hi there, friends. Future Jenna here, jumping in as always with our trigger warnings. As usual, in the very beginning of the episode, there is brief mention of alcohol. And later on in the episode, we do have a brief discussion about family holiday traditions and families getting together for the holidays. Obviously, this year is very different than past holiday seasons, and we do say it during that discussion as well, but we want to make it very clear that we here at the same page take everything virus related very seriously. We are getting our tests and following all guidelines and overall being very cautious. Please do your part by wearing a mask and staying socially distant if you go out. And if you are considering getting together with loved ones this holiday, please get tested for the virus beforehand so that we can keep everyone safe and stop the spread as much as we can. And with that, let's jump on into the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Book Club Style podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dana.
And I'm Jenna.
Two high school friends reconnecting for the joys of reading. Now, when it comes to our tastes and opinions on a good book, sometimes they may differ, but sometimes we just might be on the same page.
Yes, welcome back, and welcome to our book discussion, our first discussion for the month of December. But before we dive headfirst into our first Christmassy read and our full breakdown of that, I have a bang hair in my eyeball. Dana, do you want to go ahead and start us off with what you're drinking?
Yes, so again, just coffee today because I had a 9-hour shift yesterday at work and then came home to read all night, got to about 3 o'clock in the morning and decided, okay, I'll just wake up early instead to finish. So this is helping me keep going.
Before we started recording, Dana was saying it's the same mug that he had last week with whatever, like, follow your dreams,
yeah, the
reach
weird
for the stars
quote.
And it's very like Instagram influencer of him, where it's a random picture, but just a super inspirational quote that actually means nothing.
Right.
It was making me laugh.
It was handed to me. I didn't have choice of mug today. What's always funny is that when I do take pictures for the Instagram, and the few that I have, like the coffee cup for the morning, the Monday coffee posts, and I have like one of the cups from my mom's cabinet. She always wants to like and be like, I have the same mugs. And I'm like, Mom, those are my photos.
Those are
they
yours.
Are your mugs. So every time she's about to, and goes, oh, wait, this is a Dana post.
This is me. Yeah, sure is. And then I actually have the same drink as last week, too. I have another hot toddy, sort of hot toddy, but with Earl Grey tea as well, just to make it a little bit less of the alcohol taste. And then this month, our first read, go ahead and hold it up here. Block some of the light. Again, for those of you on the YouTubes, we read The Candy Cane Caper by Josi S. Kilpack. For those of you who can't see the cover, it is super, super cute. It's just white with a little Christmassy cup of, it looks like cocoa on the front, and then it has a blue and white, almost candy cane type of pattern in the back. It's just very cute. Publisher for this one is Shadow Mountain Paperback. Original copyright year that I found was 2019, so just last year. And the copy, it looks like that Dana and I both have, is 301 pages.
I did not realize, like we said, going back and re-examining the cover, I did not realize the little broken ornament in the title itself. And I was like, oh my God, details.
Super cute. Well, a broken ornament. I noticed that when I first got my hands on the paperback, which was not all that long ago.
Yeah, because you got it Friday, right?
Yes, it came in the mail either Thursday night or Friday morning.
Okay.
And we were recording this on Sunday.
So,
and yet I still finished the book before Dana did. And I would like everyone to be aware of that.
I was going to make them aware. I was going to just say, like, literally right, like I say 20 minutes before you're about to start something. No, like 15 before we started our session. Jenna texts me and goes, all right, you ready? I had just closed the book and was like, all right, I'm all set. Let me take a very quick shower and I'll be up on the computers. But with that shaking head, I will dive into rereading the back flap so that people can be re-summarized on what this book was about. It is the 13th of these Sadie Hoffmiller mysteries, the main character, which doesn't think it makes anything important. They don't feel connected, really. It's kind of like those standalone adventures.
Yeah, mysteries doesn't usually matter too much. Just about any detective stories you can typically read out of order. And I would say that's very much the case with this as well. Yeah. The only thing you would miss is a couple of background characters with like her husband. Mm-hmm. I would assume, get more of the background on their relationship, since it seems like they get married in one of the books.
Yeah, I think it's the book before this one. She makes a reference twice. Yeah. I won't go into about the wedding being a little hectic, and that makes me want to go read that one.
Yeah. And so stuff like that. And then there's one or two other characters that you can tell you've met before if you've read the full series, but that it gives you all of the information you need as far as their involvement in this story. So this one, not important to read in order, I would say.
No need to pick up the others. All right. So this Christmas, Sadie Hoffmiller Cunningham is making a list and checking it twice. For the first time since she and Pete married 5 years ago, their combined families are gathering for the holidays in Fort Collins, Colorado, for a party that would make Santa and Mrs. Claus proud. She just has to bake the famous Cunningham candy cane cake, make sure the looming snowstorm doesn't derail everyone's travel plans, and, oh yes, solve one teensy tiny mystery before the big day. At 94 and nearly blind, Mary, Sadie's friend and neighbor, knows this will be her last Christmas. When Sadie learns that someone has stolen antique Christmas ornaments off Mary's tree, she vows to find the thief no matter what. The ornaments had been appraised at more than $40,000, but they were worth even more to Mary, who had intended to bequeath them to her great-granddaughter Joy as a final gift. With Pete in Arizona wrapping up a case of his own, it's up to Sadie to question the residents of Nicola's house, where Mary lives, and deduce who had the means and the motive to steal heirloom ornaments during what should be the most wonderful time of the year. When stories of other thefts surface, Sadie feels like she's creating a naughty list that could rival Santa's. Identifying the thief, recovering the ornaments, and restoring them to Mary's tree in time will take a Christmas miracle, and maybe a few extra special cookies.
It's such a cute synopsis.
Oh, yeah.
So before we jump in even to why you chose this book, I just want a quick, like, yes or no, like no details given at all. Did we guess the ending before we got there? And if so, when in the book, like a third, half, quarter of the way through, whatever, that kind of thing. So did you guess the ending?
No, like the answer to the mystery?
Yeah. Like the whodunit.
I thought I had a plot twist coming, and I was so far off. I think it was more past a third, probably like maybe a fourth. Something happened that made me go, oh, this is going to be it. And then the ending streamlined that, yes, this was the answer.
Gotcha. So that was more information than I asked for.
Sorry.
Because we'll get into it.
I failed.
And this one, I'm sure we will do a spoiler talk of the ending, but that'll just be probably 20 minutes at the end. It'll be real quick for this one. So I did guess the ending. It was about, I would say, halfway or maybe just a little bit past that. Do you want to give a brief, we did most of that discussion already in our check-in. But do you want to give a brief summary again of why you chose this one, since this was your December pick?
Yeah, so because we had settled on we wanted Christmas themed books. So I typed in Christmas themed books, and a lot of them were romances, which we had already done 2 of. I wanted to avoid that. And so I tried.
And part of it was we wanted to try and make sure both of the books we were going to do this month were going to be different genres. Like,
yeah,
I didn't then, after he picked this one, want to pick a contemporary romance that takes place during Christmas because I didn't want them to feel too similar.
Yeah, so I was trying to find something different. So I said, okay, we've done some thrillers. Let's see if I can maybe just find like a mystery themed at Christmas. And most of them were dark murder mysteries. And I was like, okay, let's not go dark
There's
again.
a lot of horror and thriller books set during Christmas. And it's almost upsetting. Like, who hurt these authors?
I'm very interested to read some of them, but that's
Did
all I
they
saw.
get cold in their stocking? Like, what caused this?
And so I was just scrolling on Amazon for an idea of like, okay, give me Christmas themed books. And then this one this exact cover popped up, the Candy Cane Caper, and it just said mystery. It didn't look dark, didn't look bloody. And I was like, okay, I think this is the one. And the plot just sounded cute and simple. I was like, where are the Christmas ornaments? That sounds sweet. It's gonna be very hot. And the fact that
I love a cozy where the stakes are so low.
Right.
Like, you find out that these ornaments are incredibly valuable, not just sentimentally, but also monetarily. Like, they're very expensive ornaments because they are antiques. And so there are high stakes in that sense, but like, she's interviewing people to see who stole Christmas ornaments off of a Christmas tree in a nursing home. And so to a certain extent, the stakes are they're so low and you get to just be along for the ride.
Yeah. And so reading that synopsis, I was like, okay, this sounds simple. This sounds calm. This doesn't sound like hair raising. So I was like, okay, this is, I think, what I'm going to settle on. And I got it to Jenna pretty early. I was just like, okay, we're going to do Christmas theme. Let me look. And so all of them were these bloodied covers with like Santa's jacket ripped up or something. I was like, what are all these? And so then I saw this little artsy cover. I was like, okay, this is it. This will do it for me.
Yeah. And it worked out. So did you enjoy it overall?
It took a little bit. For a while, I'd say the buildup was a bit slow because I expected, with the fact that it was 300 pages and I was like, okay, it's going to get going about a mystery. It took a little bit to really just kind of hook me in. I was fine with the main character. I was fine with the side characters. There was some comedy and some sass in there that I liked, but I was like, all right, but can we get into the mystery? And so I'd say, in that sense,
it is worth noting, I think, the entire book takes place over 48 hours.
Right.
And so about halfway through that first day is when the ornaments are stolen. And so it is just under a quarter of the way through the book, I would say. It's about maybe page 75, 80 when stuff really like starts happening and the investigation starts in earnest. Just because it takes place in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and so that's why I thought, I was like, okay, they're right before Christmas, and the whole plan is to get this done before Christmas. So I expected it to be kicking off real fast, but yeah, it took me, I'd say, probably about halfway through the book for me to feel fully immersed into the story. Okay. And I only know that because last night I was only about just under halfway. And then when I got past...
When did you start reading this book? That last night you were just under halfway?
Oh, I started a while ago. I did start a while ago. Like I said, it was slow for me. I had a hard time getting sucked into it. But when I hit the halfway mark, something clicked and I felt this push. There was all of a sudden this urgency to figure out who took these damn ornaments. And then even I was like, I want my ornaments back. And so for me, it was about 50% is where it finally got me happy and hooked.
Sure. I did not quite have that problem. Maybe that's just because I read cozy mysteries, and so it's a format that I'm more used to than you are. Right. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I would say, I think partially I really liked the characters that we got introduced to right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so I liked reading about them. Just poked my microphone. I liked reading about them even before the mystery and the investigation started.
Mhm.
So that might be why. But yeah, I did not have that problem. I read this book in about 36 hours.
Yeah, and it may be just that genre where maybe I was expecting it to be more like a bigger mystery. So the fact that it was the idea I chose it because it was such a calm book, I think realizing literally how, like you said, calm and low stakes this is, that I was just kind of like, huh. I wanted more energy.
At no
but it got to
point
that point.
in this book, and very, very infrequently in Cozy Mysteries, is it going to be life or death? Or,
No,
is it going to
like
be
that.
racing the clock more so than this one was? Or, whatever. It's just,
and I didn't.
They're cozy. They wrap you up and they're like, we're going to figure it out together.
Yeah, and I didn't expect it to be so against the clock, because there is a clock, but not one that would kill anyone. And so it just, for me, it was like, all right, we're cruising. And I'd say probably after the mall, that's where for me it picked up.
I'm going to talk about that later, because the mall scene was my favorite scene.
It was cute.
So I'm going to talk about that one later.
Cool.
But yeah, that's fair. So that the mall scene happens, like you said, about halfway, but it's also the end of the night of the 23rd. And the whole goal is to get the ornaments by the time that Mary, her friend, whose ornaments they are, and her granddaughter come back from Mass at about 3 or so in the afternoon on Christmas Eve. So that is when it goes down into less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
From, the big ending, whatever it's going to be.
The big, yeah. And that's the thing with the plot. It's like, yeah, and it is very simple. Everything you hear about on the back cover is exactly how it is. It's just, it opens with, it's the holiday season. It's kind of just Sadie as a one woman, well, kind of just like, not just one woman detective, but one woman powerhouse of trying to get everything ready for all the family and all of that. Yeah. So you get this nice, sweet.
I related to that really hard. Before we started recording, Dana and I were talking about how busy my week is this week. So we're getting things ready for Christmas. I have lots of orders going out for my shop. We're packing because we're going to be out of town for a couple of days next week, which is part of why we're pre-recording.
Yep.
So just a busy week. I related to that part a lot.
Well, because it was funny, because like as the build-up, which I feel like I would love to see how all this came together in like the previous books, but when she talks about the family, there's, she's got kids, she's got grandkids, from her, and most of them are from her and her husband's first spouses and stuff. Yeah, from first spouses and stuff like that. And so it's, but they're all still so close and all that. And just when they kept listing off all the names, I was just like, I'm not going to be able to keep track anymore. I just know that you've got a lot of kitties.
Yeah. Big family Christmas.
But yeah, and the story flows very easily, where it's just, of course, she realizes the issue of the missing ornaments, and then she just takes it upon herself. And what's kind of cool is that Sadie is because she's retired at this point of being a private investigator. And so you can tell
she's a retired PI turned cozy mystery
writer.
Yeah. Novelist.
And well, it's funny because it's funny because it almost sounds meta when she describes that, because when she, like, at one point she does kind of describe the mysteries or something like that, it sounds like she's talking about literally just the other books. And so it literally just
she is, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of a Lemony Snicket type thing, where it's like, I'm writing the book that you are reading. You know?
And so that was really cute. And then and she just goes on with the mystery, going down the rabbit hole, checking off every list. She is a big fan of lists. She makes that apparent. If it is not on a list, she is not getting it done.
Yeah, within the second or third chapter, she's made like 10 different lists.
Yeah, and it's
very
like
funny to me.
What recipes to get done, which again, those pop up every few chapters.
Yeah.
Who to
Again, I
investigate
related to that
first.
though. I literally have during December each year, my bullet journal for that month is like half full of just spreads for menus and
Right.
what cookies I'm making and what I have to buy for making Christmas Day and whatever.
Yeah, and it's exactly what she says, because a lot of them are recipes, from like her husband Pete, like his kids, their mother who's passed, like their favorite recipes that she would make. So she's trying to do that.
I thought that was really sweet.
Oh, it was adorable.
Because this was in the book, they made a point of saying this is their first Christmas spent as a big, like, new family.
Yeah.
She was learning the recipes from their family when they were kids, and she was making some of the recipes that she made for her kids when they were younger. Yeah. So she was learning her husband's late wife's recipes and making special things for him. And I thought that was so sweet.
It just warms you up. It's almost as if, like, I probably the point of a cozy mystery, but it's like reading this warms you up like a cup of tea or cocoa would. Like, you didn't need it. This book did it for you. Yeah. So I appreciated that. Made some really feel good moments. And then after, like I said, about halfway, it really does focus more into the mystery part. And it was a little repetitive, I think, in layout for me on it with that second half. As much as that was the half that picked up for me, I just felt like
repetitive?
Well, I get that in solving mysteries, she's just got to investigate everybody, but it literally kind of felt like the same situation happened where she kind of was trying to be sleuthy, ended up in talking to a person kind of that was a main point of interest, not how she wanted to start the conversation. And then there's just kind of an exposition dump of, okay, here's some answers, to then do it again to the next person. And I get that with mystery, that's gotta be. I didn't
think that was bad necessarily, though. Partially, she is retired. I got the idea that this book in the series came out quite a bit after the other books.
Me too.
I didn't look that up or anything, but I'm assuming that when she's referring to it's been 5 years since my last case, I'm assuming that's what that means.
Yeah.
And the dedication for this book was something about to all of the Sadie Hoffmiller fans.
Yeah.
You made this happen. So I get the idea that it's been about 5 years since
the last
book came out. And so I just got the idea that the character was a little bit rusty. She hadn't done a case in a while. Also, she's a grandma, so she's just this cute little old lady wandering around interrogating people.
She keeps dropping the line, 59-ish. I'm a 59-ish year old, like, solving this mystery or doing this. And she would always make the point, like, I'm not 59, I'm 59-ish. And she would always throw that out there. And I thought that was hilarious.
That didn't bug me because it seemed more than anything like it was a character quirk, because she's a cute little old lady who hasn't done this in a while, and she's kind of wiping the dust off the gears.
Well, no, and I'm saying I liked that her being quirky and messing up a little bit because she's been rusty and hasn't done it in a while. And I agree. It does feel like that maybe the last book was meant to be like the end of it all. And then all of a sudden, like, maybe the fans demanded for one more. So she wrote, this is isolated, kind of a fun epilogue to the series. This is how her life goes on. And so, but like, I'm just saying with the way she kind of then got to the answer, that felt like it was literally just kind of like, check. Like, it didn't feel like maybe there was some accidental discoveries or like some surprises. It kind of just felt like it easily fell into the answer when I felt like, I guess maybe,
I disagree, but I see why
the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. And so, but yeah,
I stick with what I say. I think that was purposeful and character.
No, and that's okay.
I see what you're saying.
And it made a good, like I said, second half. I really liked some of the settings that she went into to figure out, like the antique store, stuff like that. That whole section I thought was great. When
that part was fun.
The last bit of sleuthing and all that, and then just kind of her moments with Mary were sweet. Like, every moment with Mary, because like sometimes I got the feeling that Mary, at the beginning, I was afraid Mary was going to be this like old curmudgeon. But she really was kind of like almost.
No, she is feisty.
Yeah.
Mary is kind of how I see myself when I am how old is she?
94.
94. She's kind of how I see myself. Mixed between her and like the grandma from Addams Family. Just real crazy. You know, no marbles left. It's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. So, but the layout was fine. Like I said, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it felt like this was all of a sudden a new novel. Like it wasn't planned. Like it was something for the fans, and this was like a payoff for the love of that was given to her when she was writing the original books. And so it's meant to be calm. It's meant to be simple. I think part of me just had some flowing issues, but overall the story worked for me. And yeah, I thought I had a plot twist guess of what the answer was going to be, and it would have been funny, but it was just, okay, here's the culprit. But
when we get into spoilers, you'll have to tell me what you thought that was.
What the plot twist was, yeah, I'll definitely say. But it did get me with the who was it. Like I said, it made it very apparent at certain points. I was like, okay, they just need the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
But when it got to that point, I was like, really?
It's something, again, we're going to go into it when we talk about spoilers, but the only thing I'll say now is it's someone that she talks to pretty early on and is like, you know, just kind of discussing the case with, kind of like a Sherlock Holmes case if Watson was behind it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just kind of like this person who's helping her and kind of on the outskirts and all that. Or which Agatha Christie is it? The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. It's a Poirot novel.
Yep.
And basically Poirot is coming back from retirement and doing this case and needs a new friend to follow him around because his doctor friend that is in all of the other books, I can't remember his name, isn't in this book. So he finds the town doctor and is like, you're going to follow on this case with me. And then it ends up that he was behind it. And so just kind of like that, where it's someone that you know throughout the story, but is not someone that you would think of for this.
Yeah.
Which I like. So, I like those stories a lot.
Yeah. And so that's kind of it for that. Let's see. Any extra
thoughts? Do we want to go into favorite characters, scene, quotes? I actually wrote down quite a few quotes in this one.
Okay.
Because, like you said, the dialogue, even not dialogue, but just the way it was written with her inner monologue and whatnot was just so feisty, and I loved it so much. On the back cover, when you read it, it talks about how she pulls these ornaments out and then tells Sadie that they're valuable and all that. But there's this one quote that I wrote down that was just so funny to me, that it says, Mary fished out another priceless heirloom she'd chosen to store in a Walmart tote and wrap in dollar store tissue paper for protection. Where it's just, she's being so sassy in her inner monologue, where she's like, yep, this thousands of dollars ornament that is wrapped in 2 pieces of tissue paper and put in a plastic tub because you are ridiculous. So the whole book was kind of like that. And it was very funny.
I'll do mine just because for me, it was a very obvious pun. Because the only moment I could say like that, I feel like I really liked the dialogue was when she's pinning it on the culprit, when she's really kind of like, because she's not harsh, she's soft, but you can feel she wants to be harsh underneath because she's also kind of hurt at the fact of who it turned out to be. And so just feeling that reserve I liked. But for me, it was the end of that chapter. It was a line from her husband. It was a pun. And I just laughed and I was like, okay, that sticks with me. Because obviously, I mean, it's not really supposed, but she does solve the mystery. Things are okay. So her husband says to her, you did it, Sadie. You saved Mary's Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, you gotta be kidding. Okay, that's funny. I'm nailing that one in. So it's just like, because it was such a cheesy line that I felt like that would have been on like a Hallmark Channel movie, but it just actually just kind of was like, ping.
No, that wouldn't have been on a Hallmark Christmas movie. That would have been the title of a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Oh, right. Saving Mary's Christmas.
Saving Mary's Christmas. or a very Merry Christmas, but spelled Mary, like the name,
Right.
something like that. Totally the title.
Or at least the tagline. So it was, so that stuck with me. Other than that, like I said, if there was a moment that I really got hooked and down, it's when she was like, okay, we need to talk about why this happened. And like that scene was really good.
And we do get a scene of the culprit talking about how it started and why it was happening, which again, I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, but I really liked that as well.
Yep.
A lot of the dialogue in that explanation I thought was really nice.
Yeah. For favorite character, I don't know. I kind of really enjoyed Joy.
Joy is the granddaughter.
Right, yeah. Mary's granddaughter, and who, for the story, Mary is going to, she's the one that she's going to give the ornaments to and stuff like that, because Mary wants, Joy has had some sort of, it's left out of mystery for a certain amount. Mary talks about Joy's had a troubled childhood, and you don't really know much about it, and even she herself doesn't know to what depths of trouble Joy's childhood is. So she wants her to have these, wants Sadie to help convince her once she's passed to sell them to use that money for her life.
Which partially broke my heart. Like I got why that was her goal in giving Joy these ornaments, but maybe it's just because I'm so sentimental as a person.
Yeah.
It's just that the idea of being given these things that are so important to this person who is so important in your life and who you love so much, and them being like, now sell them. And just that hurt my heart a little bit. It doesn't tell you in the end if Joy sells them or if she keeps them, but I kind of hope that she keeps them, at least some of them.
Right.
It broke my heart.
And so I like Sadie, obviously the main character, and usually is the one I like just because it's who we're with the whole time. And like I said, I loved her sass.
It's hard not to like someone when you're in their inner monologue the whole time. Yeah.
And I loved her mess ups at certain times, the weird situation she got into, like when she meets Frank, Joy's boyfriend.
I was gonna say, at one point she's interrogating someone sort of and trying to gather information without telling him who she is, and it's Joy's boyfriend, and he thinks that she's hitting on him the whole time.
And he gets really awkward.
She's like, I am happily married and so many decades your senior. Like, this is not not a thing.
It was so great. But I don't know, something about Joy, there was just this, even though when we do learn about her past, there was just this peace with Joy, I felt like. So anytime we came to her, even though she was worried for her great-grandmother's ornaments as well, there was this calm. Even when she kind of got angry in some scenes, she was sure of herself, because you, following Sadie, weren't sure about her being sure of herself, but to realize that she was a character who did know what she wanted and what she was going for, I was like, good. I was like, someone my age who's got things figured out.
It's possible. There's something to look forward to.
So there was peace with Joy. I like that. So I enjoyed whenever she was in it. And Frank was funny because Frank,
I liked their interactions a lot.
Yeah, especially with the fact that like his way of talking was, he was always just so awkward and didn't know how to speak to people. That he was just kind of, there was a lot of ums and a lot of like, I don't know, this, and it was just kind of like, okay, Frank, you're okay.
For me, I had Joy written down as like an honorable mention. My favorite character I wrote was Mary, which I just want to say, their last name is Hallmark. So it was Mary Hallmark, which I just loved.
Did I miss that?
Made me very happy. And so I had Joy written down because their relationship and their interactions together were so sweet, and I would say so pure and loving, that I just, any scene that Mary and Joy were both in made me really happy. But I wrote down Mary because, like I said, she's kind of, to a certain extent, how I think I will be as an old lady. She's very, very sassy with her friends. There was a lot of banter, especially
Fiona.
best friend's named Fiona. Yes. When Fiona came in, it was like, oh God, she's here again. I can't get her to leave. And
You're still alive.
Right, you're still alive. What are you doing here? Things that you could say to your best friend, but anyone else would be like, wow, this person's really mean. Why does she hate me? Things like that. And just so funny. And she and Fiona basically spent that entire day chatting and bantering back and forth and just being super feisty and listening to movies even though Mary couldn't watch them. And so they listened to It's a Wonderful Life and Elf, and while Fiona was knitting Harry Potter scarves. And it was just, I really loved Mary a lot. But she also had her little things where she kept these antique ornaments that were gifted to her from her father because they touched her heart so much as a kid, and she's never had a Christmas tree without them. And it talks about how even though she can't see anymore, she still puts her hair up in a certain bun every day, and it's just muscle memory. It always looks perfect. And she takes it down at night and puts her hair in a braid before going to bed, and just things like that. The details that we got about her were they were so sweet, and I really liked them a lot.
Yeah, with Mary, it was the feistiness. It was kind of just the calm, and even when the fact that when she was a little stern, because Mary has a daughter named Ivy, who's a prominent character, who is very judgmental, but you can tell has a soft spot. And so Sadie does a good job of being the bridge to try and reconnect Ivy and Mary and make that relationship mend itself. So that's nice and sweet. I will say I will have fun standout side characters, literally just ridiculous characters who are for a scene. The Santa was funny. The Frank's boss who resembled a Santa was great.
Clint, I think.
Clint. Yeah. And so there was all these fun, definite characters that in a comedy, they were just the person that stole the scene, and you'd be like, I want to know what that actor was. And so there was a lot of those going around that were enjoyable.
So I started this book on my Kindle the night before it got here in paperback. So I highlighted this Mary telling a story quote because it was so long. I didn't want to write it all in my journal, which I usually do with all of these stories or with all of these quotes, so that they're all in one place. But I did save this one, and I loved it so much, and I want to pull that up. Like I said, it's a little bit long. It's not too bad, but basically, of the ornaments, there is one that is broken, and it is a glass candy cane that has a chip in the bottom. And as Sadie is helping Mary decorate her tree, Mary is telling Sadie this story of why it's chipped, and it's just the most endearing and charming thing, I thought. So she says, when I was 2 years old, Mother found me under the tree, licking this particular ornament, and frustrated that it didn't taste like the candy ones we'd gotten from church. When she tried to take it from me, I pulled away, and the candy cane hit the window pane, chipping the end. She chuckled with nostalgia. Apparently, that was when I said mine for the first time, and my mother laughed and laughed. She always called them Mary's candy canes after that, and would give me a candy one after the tree was trimmed every year if I promised to wait to take the glass ones off the tree until after Christmas was over. I just thought that was so cute, and that seems like a real story that a little kid would have. That's a realistic story. I remember on our tree at home, my parents' Christmas tree, there are, I don't remember what exactly they are. I want to say they're gingerbread or a sugar cookie dough or something. I didn't make one, which is why I don't know. But my brothers, when they were little, made these little Santa ornaments. And one of them is missing a foot because one of my brothers tried to eat the Santa ornament when they were little. And so that story that she told just really stuck with me as just the sweetest thing, especially because of that Santa on my parents' tree. I was just like, this is a very real story, and I liked that a lot. I thought it was so sweet.
Yeah, fun cast of characters. Pete Sadie's husband was nice because he's out in a different state, so she's texting him all the time, and it's funny because his texts where he knows his wife so well that it's like he could just tell, and he texts her and he's like, "Are you doing illegal things?"
Yeah, are you breaking the law? Because he's a police officer. Like,
yeah,
haven't heard from you in a while. Are you doing something illegal?
And she's like,
and she
"Oh
always
no, a tunnel!"
texts him
and
like,
then,
"Oh no, I'm going through a tunnel,"
yeah,
which doesn't
so
quite go
I thought,
over as well over text.
no,
But
and so the text conversations between her and Pete were my favorite moments.
Yeah,
For a
those were
full
very
scene,
good.
I enjoyed the chapter that was the antique shop because that for me in that interrogation, that is where I feel like with the mystery, it's gonna be when I discovered it. That's where it clicked for me. Oh, I know who it is. And then I was correct after that point. But that scene, it got to a point where I was like, oh, blasphemy, and I had it, and so even then with Sadie didn't have all the answers, but she was even then like, oh, I think I know what direction I have to head in. I don't like it, but I know what direction I have to head in. So that scene for me was my standout.
Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, my favorite scene, honestly, by far. There were a couple other scenes that got pretty close, but this one was just my favorite thing. So the scene in the mall, basically Sadie goes and is wanting to ask Joy some more questions, but she's at work in basically the Santa land, the Santa photo op area of the local mall. And she can't get close enough to Joy, who is playing one of the elves. And this woman who works at the mall comes up to her and she starts getting mad, like, oh my God, there you are. What has taken you so long? And she thinks that poor little Sadie is the one who is hired to be Mrs. Claus. And the whole time she's like, this is terrible. I'm not old enough to be Mrs. Claus. And everyone else is like, yes, you are.
Yep.
But anyway, so she ends up filling in for the Mrs. Claus so that she can talk to Joy. And in this scene, when she is sitting with the Santa and she has this script basically where the kid comes up, each child to get their picture, and she has this script to follow along the lines of like, oh my gosh, Santa, you remember little Jimmy? He was so good. He's right here on the nice list. Little Jimmy, what would you like Santa to bring you for being such a good boy this year? And for some reason, all of these kids start confessing their sins to her. One of the little girls, first of all, calls her Nana Santa, which, again, I thought was the cutest thing. And am I going to teach my future children that is a nickname for Mrs. Claus? Yes, I am. It was so cute. But this little girl is like, I killed all of the fish. And apparently she had taken all of the expensive fish out of her stepdad's tank at home and like took them for a field trip to the trampoline. And this other little boy comes up and is sobbing. It's like, I stole the Pokemon. And just all of these kids decide that they're confessing their sins to Mrs. Claus.
And for each of them,
it was so cute.
Oh God, I lost it there. Because for each one,
like I'm tearing up. It was so cute.
Yeah, he basically then has to pick each of them up. I think she said like 9 or 12 confessed to her, and she picks each
and
one
she
up,
just kind of holds
them on the back
and does little laps with them while Santa talks to other kids.
Yeah, and each kid took about 20 minutes to calm, and then she puts them right back to Joy. It's
my gosh.
All right, get the kid out of here.
So it has nothing to do with the story or with the mystery, but
it was such a diversion.
I got so much enjoyment out of that scene. I thought it was so cute. I'm literally tearing up talking about this scene because it's so funny to me.
Well, because each time how she triggered it, it was the script. The scripts would trigger it because they were like, oh, you remember how she was good? She's good again this year. So what do you want? And they would just immediately burst into like, I murdered the fish.
I killed all the fish.
And that one was hilarious to me.
So funny.
I took the fish to the trampoline. I was like, who comes up with this crap?
Well, that's the thing is when she is comforting this little girl afterwards before she takes her back to her mom, she's like, it's okay. You learned and you're not going to do it again. And now we know that only fake fish can go
onto
to the trampoline.
Oh my god.
Oh, it was so cute.
Oh, it was so ridiculous. It was okay.
So
oh my god, yeah.
Yours is much more related to the rest of the story, but oh my gosh,
But that was definitely like the intermission if this was a play. Like this is what took a break from the plot.
Yeah, that's the Act 1 finale. Is her going and being it like, finally I'm gonna talk to Joy at Santa's village and it's gonna be great and I'm gonna get so much information. And then
shit, I'm Nana Santa.
And she makes some comment about how if only Joy was as easy to crack as these kids. Oh, anyway, it was just the most delightful thing that ever was. I loved it so much.
Well, from favorite characters, scenes, and quotes, this book had an extra favorite we got to try and choose because of the constant drops of recipes.
I told Dana to pick a favorite recipe or two because I was going to ask him about it. Yay!
For me, let me look at the titles again. It's right in the front. Okay. Well, one, just obvious, snow flurries. I did not discover that I like those cookies till actually like 2 years ago, and got obsessed with them.
Yeah,
and just
I had those written down too because I kind of want to add those to my Christmas cookies that I make this year.
Right. What snow flurries for those is they're those like star-shaped powdered sugar cookies with the jelly in the center. You see them on all the Christmas platters.
So they have lemon zest and like lemon oil and stuff in them, so they're not quite as sweet. And then you take 2 star cookies and put, I want to say it's strawberry jam or strawberry preserves in the middle. And then you place the other cookie on top so that the points are alternating. And then you dust it with powdered sugar. So it's a nice mix of like sweet and kind of zesty. And they're so good. And it reminded me that I like those cookies. And I kind of want to try and make them this year.
The 2 that sound interesting, one I would definitely probably have made, the candy cane crinkle cookies.
I wrote those ones down too.
Because I'm not the biggest fan of regular candy canes. Like I like the flavored ones like cherry or stuff like that, but they're too peppermint for me.
Those ones are so sugary.
But the regular candy canes are too peppermint for me. So the idea of peppermint chunks in a cookie made me go, but the fact that she said they melt in the cookie, that interested me. So it's
basically like those seem kind of like a regular sugar cookie base.
Right.
And then with, again, a little bit of either lemon extract if you are leaving them citrusy, or peppermint extract. And then with crushed up candy canes inside the cookies. And then you roll the balls of dough in, again, powdered sugar, and you bake it. And they all melt together, and they sounded really good.
And then the one that sounded interesting that I know I won't try, but like all the pieces of it together sounded like an interesting combo, the red and green salad.
We were talking about that one a little bit before we recorded. I didn't write that one down, but it stuck in my brain, and I remembered specific things about it, so maybe I should have written it down.
I have it right here. So it's 2 bunches of fresh raw broccoli cut into bite-sized pieces, a cup of sunflower seeds, a half cup of chopped red onion, which is optional, 1 cup of dried cranberries or pomegranate seeds, 1 cup grated Swiss or mozzarella cheese, a pound of bacon, cooked, crisped, cooled, drained, and chopped. And then you mix all those ingredients, and then the dressing is a cup of mayonnaise, tablespoon of red wine vinegar, and a tablespoon of sugar. So the dressing sounds
I would leave
really
the bacon
good.
off, but I would mess with that salad.
The thing for me is that
good.
I'm not the biggest broccoli fan, so I feel like I would just want to replace it with regular green leaf lettuce and see how that turned out.
I was the weird kid that loved all vegetables. Like I would get home from school and I would make myself salads.
Right.
I was so skinny when I was little. It was so nice. I used to eat salad all the time. And now I'm like, French fries? What?
Please.
Salad? Who is she? I'm kidding. I promise, Mom, I eat my vegetables. So I also had the snow flurries and the candy cane crinkle cookies written down. The other one that I wrote down was the orange cranberry bread, which
that sounded intriguing.
So good. Unlike 90% of the population. I did not get into bread making in quarantine. I wanted to, but all of the supplies were always gone, so I never got to try it. I started making vegan banana bread, but I feel like that doesn't really count because that's almost more of a banana-based cake than a bread, in my opinion. Anyway, but so I didn't get to try it, making it, I mean, but I read this orange cranberry bread recipe and I just kind of sat back and I was like, ooh. And I wish I could make it for the week of Christmas to just have in the house and make toast with in the morning. Wouldn't that be so good?
Yeah. Well, and then
So
that makes me
holiday.
think of like that super orange ham as well. There was a ham recipe in here.
Oh yeah, the ham sounded good too.
Yeah,
I almost showed
Christmas
that to my husband. We hopefully, and in theory, my parents should be able to be here for Christmas this year.
Okay.
I want everyone to know we are being very safe. We're being very smart. We're all getting COVID tests beforehand. Like, don't come for us. We're being very, very cautious.
Yep.
But we're really hoping that they can come down and spend Christmas with us. And when we make big meals, my husband is always in charge of making the meat, just because I have always been more of a veggie girl than a meat girl.
Right.
You know? And so last year he made a turkey and a ham when his family was here, and they were so good. We figure we'll stick with one this year, but yeah, because my family is kind of like me, we don't need 2 meat options. Yeah. But yeah, I almost showed him that ham recipe and was like, if you are looking for something different, this sounds really good.
It sounded very sweet, but I feel like it was able to be cut just a bit.
Yeah, and then add more sriracha and it would cut through there. Nice.
Oh yeah. And then the other one was, just because it sounded so simple, the soup in a jar.
This is something that Sadie does as a gift for neighbors and women in her yoga class. Just a like, you're in my life, here's something for the holidays. And it's basically all of the dry ingredients to make a vegetable soup. So no fresh produce and no liquids, but in a mason jar, like layers of dried onion, beans, you know, whatever, all the spices, everything, so that they could just dump the mason jar into a crock pot with, I think, veggie broth or something.
Yeah, it came with a note.
It sounded real good.
Yeah, it came with a note for like, okay, here's the 2 options you can do as the base, and then put all the stuff in the jar in it. So
I love doing stuff like that. One of Nick's and my very first Christmases together, I wanted to do something for his parents. And do you remember a couple episodes ago when I had wassail?
Yes.
The like spiked cider stuff. I basically sent them all of the dry ingredients to make a wassail along with handwritten recipe, and just said, add, you know, this much brandy because I can't send you that, and add apple cider, and then you're good to go. And so it was just reminded me of that. I like doing stuff like that a lot.
And there was a wassail recipe in here as well.
There was. It was a different one.
Yeah.
That was a more traditional wassail. But
the last one's
mine is alcoholic. So
right. The last one's not go through all of them, just because I feel like this is something people have done and I just never have. The cheese ball. As apparently like a dip. Yeah,
that is something that I know families who that is the first thing they make for all holidays, so that it's ready on the day of. I've never made a cheese ball, but
it's not
I like them when I'm at parties because I like cheese.
Yeah. It was basically just like 3 bases of cheese molded together into a ball, refrigerated so it hardens, coated in a nut, and then it's just a dip for like celery and carrots and all that.
The base is cream cheese, I want to say, and then there's like cheddars or pepper jacks. Excuse me, whatever you want to put in it, what other cheeses, and then things like onions and just stuff to add some more flavoring. And you roll it into a ball so that it is round, and you put it in the fridge or the freezer so that it hardens. And she rolled hers in nuts, but there's people, you can roll it in other stuff as well.
Right. And then
Like I said, I've never made it, so I don't remember off the top of my head.
And then
but then
you
you
just
take
stab
crackers
it.
and you like
Just stab
break
the thing.
pieces off.
But yeah, that's it for, I think, our favorite recipes. There were a lot of standouts. I'm interested to know what recipes are in all of the other books, because I know that the book before this one is the one where she gets married to Pete. So definitely there's a wedding cake recipe in that one.
I mean, I doubt she makes her own wedding cake.
No, but I think like kind of like how the big family candy cane cake was the last recipe. I think it's just like, here's a traditional like wedding.
I liked that too. I'm not really a cake person for the most part.
Neither am I.
That's not true. I like cake. I don't like icing, which is funny. But
yes, same. Well, more cheesecake. I love cheesecake.
And cake is just always, people put way too much icing on it. It doesn't need that much.
Nope.
But anyway, that one looked really good too. The candy cane cake.
Let's see. All those
I think
recipes.
that is mainly it. Let me see if I want to share any of the other little quotes that I wrote down, and then we can go into spoilers.
Yeah.
There was one that I just spoke to my soul a little bit. And all it is she says she felt her anxieties settle into a gentle walk instead of dashing through the snow as they had been. And that just made me laugh, partially because I was like, wow, I feel attacked. My anxiety is through the roof. But also just because there were little things like that where she would throw Christmas into things that didn't need to be Christmas. And I don't know if that was a choice for the character just really liking Christmas, or if that was the author being like, see, it's a Christmas book. but there were things where when she was counting the passage of time, instead of being like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, that people do in real life, she was counting Rudolphs and Frosties, just things like that. And they were all throughout the book. That's the only one I wrote down. But those were very funny to me. Again, I'd be interested to see if that was a character choice or if that was the author just purposefully writing a Christmas book.
Right.
I think the only other main one that I wrote down was when she was talking about gossip, because you talked about Ivy already, Mary's daughter, who I think her heart is in the right place, but she seems like kind of a judgmental person.
Very much.
And when they're first talking on the phone, she starts gossiping a bit about Joy's boyfriend, Frank.
Yeah.
And Sadie is talking about gossip in general, just in her inner monologue. And she says, first, it revealed details about the person being gossiped about. Second, it revealed an awful lot about the person sharing the gossip, which I liked that a lot.
That line, I remember that one did stick with me. I did not underline it, but that one I was like, ooh, that was clever.
Yeah.
So
I liked that because it's kind of how I feel. I love being in on some drama as long as it doesn't include me. Like, you can tell me the drama and I'll be like, oh my God, girl, no way. Tell me more.
Spill tea, please.
Right. As long as it's not about me, like, I will listen till the cows come home. But I liked that a lot as far as people who are actively gossiping about other people.
Well, we'll give a quick little ending for those who don't want to get into spoilers. But we're going to talk about...
Are we on the same page? Did we like it?
I enjoyed it. Like I said, for me, with the first half, it was very slow. But when we got to the second half, when it was more focused on the mystery and less about the kind of Christmas world building, it picked up for me, and I did zoom through it. So it was enjoyable. I don't know if cozy mysteries are a genre I may stick with, but part of me is interested to go back and at least learn the beginnings of Sadie. So yeah, that's how I feel about that.
I liked it. I didn't have the issues with it that you did. I didn't find it as slow as you did, but it's very laid back. Like I said, the stakes relatively to other mysteries and other, thrillers, whatever, other subgenres of the mystery overarching genre.
Right.
The stakes were really low, and it was a cute little Christmas story. Got to read about someone playing Mrs. Claus in the mall, and she found some ornaments and people cheered. Is just, It's a really small story relatively, but I
Right.
really liked it. I am glad that I read it. I am glad that I have a copy. It's something that I might reread again in the future. It's not something that I would go back and reread every Christmas season necessarily, but it was cute. It's worth reading, I think.
Yeah. So with that, I think we're on the same page for it. Thank you all for listening. Who is not going to stick around for spoilers? Basically, the main spoilers just talk about who done it and maybe the trail that led to it.
And the rest of you, this is your official spoiler warning. Bomb, bomb, bomb.
So I think we should lead to it how the trail. I think just the main thing. There were 3 main suspects. The first main suspect was one of the nurses, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because Sadie goes to her first to kind of start the investigation, and Carol's just acting weird right off the bat.
She's the one you can tell in every mystery or thriller where the author from page 1 is like, see, this person did it. Don't you think this person did it probably? And sometimes they actually did, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, called it.
Yep.
Yeah, every type of mystery has a character that the author's like, see, don't you think this person did it probably?
At like 40 pages in.
Yeah, and sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't, but Carol was very much that character where the author, it was probably totally Carol, right?
Yeah, and so, and the reason why is because we learned that Carol, as a nurse, she had her license on suspension, and then she was put on probation because of some bad stuff she did that possibly she did, possibly she didn't. But
yeah, it's one of those kind of gray areas. I worked in the medical field for a long time, and so there's a lot of those. But basically, like, we can't prove that you did anything shady, but we also can't prove that you didn't.
Yeah, someone else pointed a finger at you, so yeah. And so poor Carol, I felt bad for her later, but once
spoiler alert, that she didn't do it, you feel really bad for her.
Yeah, and so it starts with Carol, and that kind of kicks off where she thinks, okay, she's very suspicious, and so Sadie goes through some background. She talks to her friend Jackie, who's the head of the old home of all the nurses, and she learns that Jackie is old friends with Carol. That when Carol needed a job, Jackie was like, "Okay, I'll give you a chance," and that she's never regretted hiring Carol. And so we're kind of like set calm for Carol then. So then we move on to Frank, Joy's boyfriend. Because
we didn't talk too much about him
No.
beforehand. He's a really sweet character. I ended up liking Frank a lot. And I think, like I said, that his interactions with Joy were just so sweet.
Yeah.
But he is someone that people judge on sight a lot. Like, he has a lot of visible tattoos. He has gauges. He has pretty long hair. Things like that, which I'm glad that he didn't end up being the guy, because the first conversation between Ivy and Sadie regarding Frank, and she's telling Sadie, like, oh my gosh, have you met him yet? Have you seen him? He's a scumbag. Like, he just looks terrible, and you know that it's true, and all of these things. And Sadie was like, wow, yeah, I don't know. He does, when she sees him, he does kind of seem like a bad guy, and it was very judging him on the surface. And it was to an extent that it almost seemed to me at one point that the author was kind of against this look on people, And so I was honestly really worried that it would turn out to be him just because of that.
Right.
And so I'm really glad that it didn't. And it didn't go that way.
It would have broken Joy's heart, and then my heart would have been broken for Joy. Right. So I feel like,
but even just like with the stereotyping, that it would have been so much for me. I would not have enjoyed the book nearly as much if Frank had been behind it.
Yeah, and so Sadie then gets most of her information from Joy about who Frank really is, and then she has a real talk with him after the one where she accidentally flirts with him. And she actually gets to know.
He was like, I have a girlfriend. She's like, oh my God, no, I didn't.
So sorry.
It's okay. I could just picture her trying to disappear into her Christmas sweater.
Goodbye. And then she gets to have a one-on-one with him, and she can tell, like, in what I liked is you could always see it click in Sadie's mind where she had the belief of this person didn't do it. Even if we didn't have all the information and didn't have a new suspect yet, this person did not do it. And when Sadie had
You
that
could tell
relief,
when her gut shifted
right.
to like, okay, I need to be looking somewhere else now.
Yeah. And when her gut shifted, your gut was like, oh, I trust you. We're good.
Yeah.
So it then shifted from Frank to Ivy, because I forgot why that went to Ivy. Why did it shift to Ivy?
So one of the nurse's aides had seen Ivy in the room the night.
Late, right.
Basically, the Joy comes in the day before Christmas Eve and notices some of the ornaments are missing. And so there's this long timeline, basically, of when they could have disappeared. I want to say it's 7 p.m. the night before to like 1:30 in the afternoon the next day. So it is a long stretch of time when no one knows when they disappeared.
Yeah.
And one of the nurse's aides, you find out about 3/4 of the way through the book, saw Ivy there and wasn't expecting to see her there. And Ivy was standing next to the tree, had her hand inside her purse, and was very kind of skittish. Yeah. So what you find out is, obviously, you hear this story 3/4 of the way through the book. She didn't take all of the ornaments, right? And these are pretty big ornaments. Like, you, in a book, obviously don't know quite how big, but you would assume about this big per ornament, except for the candy canes.
For people not on YouTube, you'd say probably like, I don't know, make a C with your thumb and index finger.
Yeah. Pretty big. Some of the ornaments that go missing, I want to say 5 of them, are like big fruits, like fruit-shaped ornaments.
Yeah,
and so
half of them
pretty big.
Half of them are glass and half of them are cardboard, which are more
so the
valuable
cardboard ones she might have been able to fit in her purse, but there's no way she could have put the fruit ones in there.
No.
So you know even then that she didn't steal all of them. You do find out she did take the candy cane that was missing, which is the one from Mary's story, which I guessed that from the very beginning. As soon as the one candy cane that went missing was the sentimental one, I was like, cool, so that's the daughter that Mary is fighting with, right? And I was right.
And she gives her reason, and it's sweet. She basically gives it that, because you learn in the very beginning that Mary has all her stuff in storage, and everything is labeled with the help of Ivy and the help of Sadie for who to go
Ivy
to
is
when
the
she
executor
passes.
of her will. And so Ivy knows exactly what is going to everyone. And so she knows that Mary is leaving all of the ornaments to Joy. And she knows that they are valuable monetarily, but she doesn't even give that as a reason. She just has always had this really tough relationship with her mom, and looking at the will and, you know, being a part of making that official and carrying out her wishes, she knows that her mom isn't leaving her anything of hers and anything, you know, that meant anything to her. And she gets really sad about it. So she takes the candy cane and she brings it back because she feels really guilty taking it. And she puts it back on the tree. And then Mary is like, I know you probably won't want it, but if you want it, I want to give you my candy cane. And she starts crying, and I started crying, and it was just beautiful.
And then Sadie looked at, Ivy looked at Sadie like, did you tell her? And Sadie's like, I didn't. So it was just like perfect. And it's funny because she just puts it back on the tree, and then she had it wrapped in bubble wrap in her purse, just puts it back on the tree. And then she's like, you can take it. Let's find something safe for it. And Sadie's like, oh, I have bubble wrap in my purse.
I happen to have bubble wrap in my purse.
And Mary's like, why the hell do you have bubble wrap in your purse?
Never know when you'll need it. Which,
then,
that was very funny.
So then that shifts to Sadie does steal. She breaks into the employee lounge.
She breaks some rules, some big rules, considering it's a medical facility. She breaks into the file cabinet with all of the personal health information and all the PIPA and everything, and it's just...
And she breaks into the lockers and she steals Carol's planner, where she learns that planner...
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, first, where she learns Carol, for some reason, coincidentally, has the information of multiple missing items from multiple residents, and like an eBay name attached to them, and pricing in sold /shipped/not shipped. And you're like, oh my God, she's selling them online on eBay.
Which
So
again, even if at that point you still thought it was Carol,
it's not.
there's no way at that point that it was still Carol.
Well, no,
She
and that's
has
the thing
all
is,
of this information in her planner, and it was too easy to find.
right. Well, and that's the thing is, I thought that I was like, okay, so she did the thing where she puts the red herring at the beginning, and then it turns out, oh, it's going to be her. But then I did get the thought, oh no, she personally wants to find out who's stealing these, and that's what you learn. Is she has the log because she has noticed these things missing, and she wants to track down the thief as well. She's been doing it for the 3 years she's been working here, and so you learn that she's sisters to a man who owns an antique shop, a man who just so happens to have given Mary an offer like a while ago for all the ornaments.
The estimate on her ornaments and a few other things in her estate, and
so
wanted very badly to buy them.
Another coincidence. And so Sadie goes there undercover, but then Carol shows up and they have a one-on-one conversation in the back room where she reveals that, I've been trying to track it down. But she still acts sketchy because then when Sadie drills her and says, well, you know something, she can tell she knows who it is. Carol responds,
she asks for a lawyer.
And you're like, that's just 101 guilt there. But I know it's not
I loved
you.
When Carol was saying it, though. And again, at this point, there was no way that it was Carol because everything was lining up too nicely to be Carol.
Right.
But she says, I'm not going to keep talking to you without talking to a lawyer. Like, I'm sorry. I know how guilty that makes me look, and I promise I didn't do it. But I can't keep talking to you without talking to a lawyer first.
Right. And then that's where it clicked for me because then we already have our next suspect, and it's proven, is that she says that she's she doesn't say it, but Sadie can tell she's protecting someone, and the narration says that she knows she's protecting someone. So you as a reader, well, me, for someone who didn't guess it, I went, who is she protecting?
Yeah, who in the retirement home would she feel this strongly about protecting?
And it's the person who gave her second chance, Jackie.
And who is in charge of her evaluations to see if she gets her nursing license back.
And so then Sadie goes back, breaks into Jackie's office, and finds
so much personal health information in it. Just as someone who's worked at hospitals and stuff, I was like, it's so illegal. There's so much stuff in there that you can't look at.
And it's funny because she also texts Pete because Pete is doing background information before he gets on the flight back, and she's constantly texting him. And then he goes, are you being illegal?
From the airport on his cell phone. That was stressing me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
and
oh my God, this poor guy, let him be.
And so
talk to someone else.
she texts him again. It's like, I need to know this. He goes, okay, are you getting anything illegal again? She goes, oh, look, another tunnel.
Another tunnel. So weird.
And so
you're breaking up.
Right. She breaks into Jackie's office and finds basically that the missing incident reports of the missing items, but she can tell they're copies and that they were blacked out and never filed to corporate. So then
basically she used whiteout. So when a new resident comes in, they and their next of kin write down everything that they're bringing to the home with them.
Yep.
Including anything that would be of value, whatever, so that there's record of what is in their room. And they sign it, and their next of kin signs it, and she has to file it appropriately. And the ones that were on Carol's list as having something go missing, when she looks at those intake forms, you can tell that something in the list had been whited out and then made a copy of so that you couldn't see the whiteout on the paper.
Right. You couldn't see the original. And then all the incident reports that have the missing item, those were the ones that weren't stamped and signed for corporate.
Yeah.
And so
they were missing. The older ones were missing.
Yeah.
The newer ones had not been filed properly.
Yeah. And so she calls a detective that's a friend of Pete's, and basically they catch her, they corner her in the room, and she confesses. And her reasoning is basically she had one resident who had an old tea set. She polished it, took care of it, and because he was going to be gone soon, he said, please take it. And she wasn't allowed to take it.
He was so touched that she wanted to take care of his things for him.
Yeah. And so then she has no room for it, and just decides to sell it and give the money to her kids who are grown up and struggling and stuff like that.
She was saying basically, there's always something that comes up that I don't have money for.
Right.
Like my daughter got laid off and she and her husband couldn't pay their mortgage, or I got into an accident and my car needed new tires, like something like
Yeah.
that we all always run into, and there's never enough money in the bank. So
Yeah.
it's a very understandable
motive.
but yeah, it's heartbreaking because
Because
the way that they lure her back there to confront her also is they have the head nurse on staff. It's Christmas Eve, so she's home with her family, and they have the head nurse that's in that day call her and basically say there's an emergency with Mary and we need you here. And so she runs to Mary's room and she's like, oh my gosh, what's happened? What can I do? And so there's even in her inner monologue, Sadie's, a line about how ironic it is that her commitment to her patients is what is going to catch her in the end and what's going to get her there.
Because she
and
does
so it's
care.
Just, it's so sad.
She
that
does
that
care
part
about
made me
her.
really sad.
Well, yeah, because she does care about her patients, but she took advantage of them. And it's just painful. And so you learn that it is a felony because you learn that she had accumulated over $14,000 in like sales of all the stuff that she had taken.
Yeah.
Because she would underprice it so it would sell fast and it would go away.
And it was multiple felonies too. So I didn't know this, but it's in the book. So I assume the author did research and that it's a real thing. I guess I don't know for sure. But so that these things aren't going missing from the home and then the next day showing up on eBay with their town as the place that the shop is located.
Right.
Her son, who lives in Texas, is helping her sell them and helped her create the eBay and whatnot. So she uses his town as the location of the shop, but is sending them from her town. And so apparently that is a felony too. I would not have known that, but it's
giving
in the book.
The wrong address.
You've got to, at this point, unless you're going to do your own research, assume that the author did it and that is true.
It wraps up the catcher. She's going to go to jail. And sweet little Sadie was going to, with Pete, pay her bail so she could
spend Christmas with her family because all of her kids came into town for Christmas.
Yeah, but the kids did it on their own anyway. And so, and then the epilogue and everything kind of wrapping up. It almost seems like kind of
the epilogue was so
God. It almost seems like a bittersweet ending because basically Pete makes it back. And the kids don't. The storm happened too fast.
Yeah, the whole book you're hearing about this big snowstorm. They're expecting at least 14 inches of snow, like making it impossible to travel. So and like we said in the very beginning, she's planning this huge family Christmas, this first family Christmas, and she's learning all of these recipes and all of these things. And she's just the whole book so sad and so anxious, and she's worried that her husband isn't going to fly home in time, and the kids and the grandkids, they won't be able to fly in or travel. And
I thought it was going to be stick the landing of a realistic ending because Pete makes it back and that's what's sweet. Yeah. But the kids and grandkids don't. And so I thought it was going to be okay. So she's going to be content because she at least saved Mary's Christmas and that it was going to be okay. Well, then the epilogue, throughout the book, you kept getting hints and knowing that there was neighbors who were moving into Mary's house. That was her neighbor's house.
Sadie had never seen them. She just every once in a while saw the lights on. And she was like, who's moving in the middle of the night? Who has all these construction workers coming in? And they're changing her house. They're ruining it.
She would leave plates of cookies for them too. And they would take the cookies, but no thank you notes, no returning the plates. And so she's like, I just don't get it. So Pete pressures her. He's like, hey, let's go give her the extra cake. Give them the extra cake you made. She goes,
yeah, because she makes, you mentioned his late wife's recipe of the candy cane cake that she basically said, okay, I will make another one whenever the family gets here and we can have our late Christmas celebration. But I'm going to still make this morning because my husband deserves a treat. Like, he's been working so hard. He's been so good to me. And so she still makes it. And she's like, hey, you want to just eat this entire cake for dinner tonight? And he's like, no, let's take it to the neighbors in Mary's house. And the whole time she's been so sad that someone else is moving into Mary's house and changing it. And she's like, hell no, I don't want to do that. rude. Why, I worked so hard on this for you. And he's like, come on. And they do, and it's her family. And all of the kids and I miss my family a lot, so I'm like getting emotional, y'all. The Christmas vibes and the being far away from my family are getting to me.
Well, yeah, so it turns out the entire family's in that house, and you learn that
and Pete had helped them pull it off. And
yeah, he bought the house, and it's going to basically be a home for when all their family visits. But when their family isn't visiting, they will rent it out to other families who want their families to visit. So it's basically a second home for all their relatives, but then also for relatives.
So they don't have to move into this house that I want to say is just like 2 houses over from them or something. It's in their neighborhood. But basically earlier in the story, she's talking to Pete and is saying, I'm not sure about these people that seem to be moving in. It looks like they're changing everything, and I don't want them to take away everything that made it Mary's house. Yeah. And he says, well, you just are sad because you wanted us to buy it. And she's like, no, it's too much space. It wouldn't make sense for the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. It'd be nice when family visited, but like, it does not make sense.
Right.
And so, yeah, Pete and the kids all like work together to make this surprise for her. And they buy the house. They are making sure that everything is in working order. They're replacing the carpet, just really little minimal changes.
Yeah.
So, and they call it Mary's place, and they keep everything pretty much the same. And that way, like you said, when they come into town, they have somewhere to stay. Every room has a king size bed and bunk bed. So you can fit
40 people.
Yeah.
40 people
tons
in this house.
And tons. So many more people than you would ever need to fit in one house. Holy crap, do not ever put me in a house with 40 people in it.
Oh, no.
But, and it's so cute.
Oh, yeah. She's bawling, and he's bawling. And then the final note, the end of the epilogue. Well, that was the final chapter. So then the actual epilogue is the kids are gone. It's you learn that Mary passed on December 31st, right at the end of the year.
Which was her wish. She wanted to have one more Christmas with her family and then survive just another couple of days so that her family wouldn't associate Christmas with her passing. Right. Which she broke my heart a little bit.
She gives out all the stuff. She gave her ring to Frank, who then decided to propose the day before Mary's death.
I forgot about that, but again, I died. So apparently when Joy and Frank were visiting her one of the days, she like slipped her wedding ring off and snuck it to Frank and was like, this is for whenever you're ready. And 2 days later or something, the day before she passes, he decided, I'm ready, and proposed to Joy with her wedding ring.
Oh my God.
And so it's talking about the memorial and everything at Mary's place and at this old house, and how everyone is trying so hard not to be sad, and they're trying to remember it as how happy her life was and all of that. And how everyone is so excited because at the memorial, Joy's wearing her ring, and it's I'm gonna start crying again. Y'all, my emotions are all over the place.
And then the quick wrap up of it, then Sadie and Pete get their gift from Mary, and it's basically a quilt that Mary and Sadie quilted together.
Which again, I think you have to assume is in a previous book.
Right. And so, and it's just and there's just like a love letter on there about cherish each other. Time is, you can't waste it and all that. And then
I didn't write down any of that letter, but a couple of pieces were really beautiful. A couple pieces of the letter. She basically, it's a quilt with, I can't remember if it was just the pattern or if it was the fabric that was used, but it's intertwining wedding rings.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be, she said in the letter that it's a quilt that she had made and given to all of her newlywed friends and, all of her grandkids and her kids when they got married. And she made some sort of comment in this letter about how, love and life are like the quilt, and you kind of just have to let it come together piece by piece. And it's not until it's over that you see it was a masterpiece. And it was beautiful.
Yeah. And then
There were a couple pieces that were a little bit more religious than I felt they
Right.
needed to be, but that part was really pretty.
So, you want to know what my theory was?
Yes, tell me what was your
I
like
thought
twist
it
ending?
was I thought it was going to be hilarious because the whole time Sadie is avoiding telling Mary that the ornaments are missing because Mary's
You
blind.
thought Mary hid them?
So the whole time Mary is blind and doesn't know that they're missing. So she wants to, if best she can, not let her know that they're gone and get them back to her before she even realizes they're gone. Which at one moment, for a plot twist, half of them did get sold, but they got them back.
Yeah.
So I thought because the entire time she's avoiding telling Mary, there was a little bit of a discussion early on where she was like, "Are you sure you don't want to keep some of them?" I thought it was going to turn out that Mary took off her favorites to then maybe be buried with or something or keep. And so the whole time she's avoiding telling Mary
stole her own ornaments.
And the whole time, if she had just been, and it was going to end with her failing this investigation, nobody pans out. She tells Mary, and Mary goes, "They're in the closet."
Yeah, they're right here. Why? What are you freaking out about?
Right, and I thought it was going to do that, and I would have died laughing. But then
when you said you thought it was going to be a twist ending, I figured you thought it was Joy. And that maybe you thought it was going to be a twist that Joy, because she doesn't know until the very end that these ornaments are being left to her. She also doesn't know how much how much they're worth. And so when you said that, I thought you were going to have assumed it was Joy and she was wanting to like keep a couple of things that meant so much to her grandma.
That too. I thought maybe she was going to jump the gun, take things like Ivy, jump the gun, take things that meant to her. So I had that too, but then I thought, oh my God, it kept making a point to bring up the fact that she would not tell Mary. I was like, oh my God, Mary took some off.
Like, that would have been really funny.
It would have been great, and then it would have just been a happy ending. So, but no, there was a culprit, and it was sad that it was one of Sadie's, old-time friends.
It was sad. But it was a little bit heartbreaking, especially, like we said, with her reasoning and everything. It was just, and how much she really did care about the people living in the home. It was very sad.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's it for the book. And as we said before we did spoilers, we're on the same page with it. We enjoyed it. It's got some great comedy. It's a nice, simple little mystery to get you by if you need something to fill between big reads or something.
Some fun relationships, some fun banter, but other than that, it's a really light read. It's not gonna take too much brain power. Mm-hmm. Which is nice. I need some of those reads to finish off this heck of a year.
To impress Goodreads.
Wow, rude. I am at 83 right now.
There you go.
Trucking along. I don't know. Words are hard. My brain is tired.
You're good. All right. So you want to start the wrap up where they can find us?
Heck yes, I do. Let me pull it up really quick. Because I always forget something if I don't pull it up. Or like one episode, I definitely gave the wrong username for Instagram because I gave the same one as Twitter, which it's not. It's fine. I put it in the show notes. It's fine. Nobody called me out on it. So anyway, wrapping us up, you can email us anytime at thesamepagepod@gmail.com. If you have any books that you think we should read for the podcast, any questions, collaboration requests, maybe if you've read one of our upcoming books already and you have a topic or question you'd like us to include, please absolutely send us an email. We would really love for you to be a part of the conversations with us. If you want to reach out to me specifically, you can find my blog on tacklingtbr.home.blog, as well as on Instagram at tackling_TBR. And as for the podcast, you can find and connect with us on Instagram at The Same Page Podcast, on Twitter at The Same Page Pod, and you can find us on both Facebook and YouTube just by searching for The Same Page Podcast. And we are, I don't think we said it in the, I just hit my desk with my knee, so sorry about that. I don't think we mentioned this in the last episode, but we are officially on Amazon Music now as well.
Yes.
So you can search for us there as well, The Same Page Podcast. And the last thing that I'm going to say, as always, if you're listening to our show and you like what you hear, please consider heading to Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, wherever it is that you listen to us, and subscribing, leaving us a positive rating, and if you feel like it, even leaving us a review. It means so much to small shows like us. It only takes a minute of your time, and it helps us get introduced to more bookish folks.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week with another episode, our kind of hack check-in, half of reviewing of our
episode
whole year.
Next week is going to be, we're not going to do 2 check-ins per month strictly like we have in the past for a check-in, just because, not to call you out, that would be a little bit difficult for you since you wouldn't have read much in between those.
Right.
So it's going to be more of a bookish discussion. So our episode next week is going to be our favorite reads, watches, and listens of 2020 to celebrate the end of the year.
Yeah, and so we'll see you all next week with that episode. We're actually just going to record it now in like 30 seconds, but
we are. Yes.
But you have fun.
Long enough for me to end this Zoom call, save the video, and start another one.
All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Dana here with an announcement. Starting today, I will no longer be a co-host of the Same Page podcast. Due to scheduling conflicts as well as other personal reasons, I have decided to step away from the show because as it continues to grow and evolve into something bigger and better, I just knew I wouldn't be able to give the 100% commitment that it deserves. However, that does not mean that the show is over. Jenna is going to continue giving you new episodes of the podcast with many more book discussions. I know she plans to have some guest hosts, as well as, describe and tell you all about the other watches and listens that she's doing. She has been such a powerhouse through all of this. She really has been the driving force, making sure that we continue to grow, and I applaud her for that, and she deserves all the followings and all of your support as the show continues on. I, however, am the one who decided to step away, and I just hope that you continue to stay with the show and see where it goes. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I can't wait to listen to all of the good stuff and content that Jenna is going to bring you. Thank you all so much for the support, and I will see you one more time on the 2020 recap where we choose our favorite reads, watches, and listens. Thank you all again. Have a great one.